Hello everyone, welcome my YouTube channel. Breaking news. Russia recruits Afghan commandos to bolster forces in Ukraine. Surprising effect of US military drawdown. Former intelligence officer Saeed Iran may be helping Russia recruit Afghan commandos. The Russian military has started recruiting US-trained Afghanistan commandos to bolster its forces in Ukraine as Russian President Vladimir Putin looks to replenish his forces and supplies in the drawn-out conflict. Multiple Afghan military and security sources have said the elite National Army Commando Corps, which fought alongside US forces for nearly 2 decades, have started joining up with Russian troops in Ukraine after the US left them behind following its withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021, according to a report from news website Foreign Policy. The force, comprised of 20,000 to 30,000 volunteer commandos, have faced persecution in their homeland after the US departed as the Taliban took control of the country. A few hundred senior officials evacuated during the withdrawal, leaving thousands of soldiers to try and escape to neighboring countries or hide to avoid capture and execution. A Department of Defense spokesperson told Fox News Digital that the Pentagon has seen the reports, and that officials will monitor the situation but have nothing to say on the matter today. The State Department did not respond to a request for comment. House Oversight Republicans call out Biden admin for obstruction of IG's Afghan withdrawal probe. The U.S. spent around $90 billion to build the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces, according to a report from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR, from May 2022. Rebecca Koffler, president of Doctrine and Strategy Consulting and a former DIA intelligence officer specializing in Russia and Putin, told Fox News Digital that the situation might prove more complicated than initial reports indicated as intelligence suggests that Iran may be helping Russia with its recruitment. Putin says coming decade will be most dangerous since end of World War II. Intelligence indicators suggest that Russian operatives, possibly with assistance from Iran, are recruiting Afghan soldiers and refugees, including those trained by US forces, to fight on behalf of Russia in Ukraine, Koffler said. In the aftermath of the hasty and disorganized US withdrawal from Afghanistan, thousands of Afghan security personnel, translators and support staff had to flee as the Taliban took control, she explained. They became refugees in neighboring countries with no means of survival. Biden's plan to rescue Afghan allies is failing due to State Department backlog, 325,000 unopened emails. The Russians are seizing on this opportunity to fill the gaps in their requirements that their own mobilization efforts cannot fill. The recruitment presents another troubling consequence of President Biden's withdrawal with continued knock-on effects. Many Afghanistan allies, possibly thousands, are still waiting to enter the U.S. Bill Razio, senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, told Fox News Digital that the report presents one of the more unexpected consequences of President Biden's rash and disastrous decision to precipitously withdraw from Afghanistan, and warned of the significant impact it could have on the war in Ukraine. Tens of thousands of commandos were left in Afghanistan to fend for themselves, and many are without work and being hunted by the Taliban, said Razio, who also edits the Long War Journal news site. They are easy recruiting prey for the Russians, assuming they are willing to fight for the Russians. If the Russians can recruit the commandos in large numbers, they can have an impact on the battlefield in Ukraine, he added. Turkey, Ukraine, UN agreed to move 16 vessels under Black Sea grain deal. Russia on Saturday suspended its participation in landmark agreement that allowed vital grain exports from Ukraine. Istanbul. The UN, Turkey and Ukraine have agreed on a movement plan for 16 vessels that are in Turkish waters after Russia withdrew from the Black Sea grain deal. In a statement, the Istanbul-based Joint Coordination Center, JCC, which oversees shipments, said the 3 delegations also agreed to inspect 40 outbound vessels on Monday. The JCC added that the Russian side was informed of the development. According to the statement, currently, there are 97 loaded vessels and 15 inbound vessels registered for JCC inspection around Istanbul and an additional 89 that have applied to join the initiative. Earlier, Turkey's National Defense Ministry said National Defense Minister Hulusi Akar continues to negotiate and coordinate with his interlocutors for the resumption of Black Sea grain exports. On Saturday, Russia announced that it had suspended its participation in the deal to export Ukrainian grain following attacks on its Black Sea fleet. Turkey, the UN, Russia and Ukraine signed an agreement on July 22 in Istanbul to resume grain exports from 3 Ukrainian Black Sea ports, which were paused after the Russia-Ukraine war began in February. Ukraine faces emergency power outages amid fresh Russian strikes. Emergency services working to alleviate damage caused by missile strikes, says Ukrainian presidency. Istanbul, Ukraine on Monday announced emergency power outages across the country after Russia launched a fresh barrage of missile strikes targeting critical infrastructure. Emergency power outages are being introduced due to massive shelling of critical infrastructure. Russian terrorists have once again launched a massive strike on the power grid facilities of a number of regions of Ukraine. Some of the missiles were shot down by air defense, while some hit the target, the head of the office of the Ukrainian presidency Kyrylo Tymoshenko said on Telegram. Tymoshenko said emergency services were working to alleviate the damage caused by the strikes. Blasts were heard across multiple regions in Ukraine, including the capital Kyiv, in addition to a nationwide air raid alert declared by local authorities, excluding the region Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Officials in the Kyiv, Zaporizhzhia, Kirovograd, Kharkiv, Cherkasy, and Dnipropetrovsk regions reported explosions caused by the Russian strikes in statements on Telegram. Meanwhile, local authorities in the Mykolaiv and Lviv regions reported that the fragments of missiles struck by air defense systems landed on civilian infrastructure or in open areas. As a result of strikes on critical infrastructure facilities, part of the capital is de-energized. There is no water supply in some areas, Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko said. A later statement by Klitschko noted that engineers were working to restore electricity to a power facility damaged by the strikes. He added that this facility supplied approximately 350,000 apartments in Kyiv. Specialists from private Ukrainian energy company DTEK, along with the country's sole power grid operator Ukrenergo, emergency services, and authorities, are doing everything possible to stabilize the situation as soon as possible, he said. Ukraine's energy infrastructure has been the target of Russian airstrikes since the start of the war in February. The Ukrainian government said on October 20 that it would cut energy consumption across the country by 20% due to the lower output from damaged energy facilities. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced on October 18 that 30% of the country's power stations had been destroyed since October 10. Good day to everyone.